Emily had always loved animals. After months of isolation working from home, she finally decided to adopt a dog from the local shelter. That's when she met Milo, a scruffy, medium-sized mix with solemn eyes and a calm demeanor. The shelter, staff said he'd been found alone near a construction site, shivering and refusing food for days. No one knew where he came from, but something in his gaze made Emily feel he was meant to be with her. The first few days were peaceful. Milo was well-behaved, gentle, and unusually alert. He followed Emily around, never straying far. At night, he curled up beside the bed and slept soundly, until one night when he didn't. At exactly 2:47 a.m., Emily was startled awake by a low, rumbling growl. She sat up, her heart thumping, and saw Milo standing beside the bed, his ears flat and eyes fixed on the mattress. Then, with no warning, he lunged, biting into the side of the bed, as if attacking an invisible enemy. "Milo, hey, stop!" Emily shouted, flipping on the lamp. The dog backed away, panting, still growling under his breath. Confused, she examined the spot he'd bitten. Nothing. Just a slight indent in the mattress and his slobber on the sheets. The next morning, Emily brushed it off. Maybe he'd had a bad dream, or maybe a mouse had skittered by, though none had ever been seen in the house. She mentioned it casually to her fiancé, Jake, who worked night shifts at the hospital. "He's probably anxious being in a new home," Jake said over a voice message. "Try leaving something with your scent in the room. He'll settle down." But Milo didn't settle. The next night, at exactly the same time, 2:47 a.m., he did it again. This time it was worse. He growled louder, circled the bed twice, then suddenly dug his teeth deep into the side of the mattress and tugged so hard he nearly flipped it. Emily screamed and pulled him back. His eyes were wide, ears twitching, fur raised. She'd never seen him like that before. This became a pattern. Night after night, at the same exact time, Milo would fixate on the same spot on the bed. Emily tried everything, leaving the lights on, playing soft music, even moving the bed slightly. But Milo always returned to that exact location. He didn't chew anything else in the house. No shoes, no furniture, only that one part of the bed. Concerned, Emily took Milo to the vet. They ran tests, checked his teeth, examined his behavior. Everything came back normal. "He's healthy," the vet said, gently scratching behind Milo's ears. "If anything, he's overly protective. Dogs sometimes develop fixations. Could be something in the mattress he's reacting to, maybe a scent or a vibration." That night, Emily moved the bed and thoroughly cleaned the entire area. She even sprayed a calming lavender mist. She stayed up late reading, waiting to see what Milo would do. At 2:46 a.m., Milo stirred. At 2:47, he growled. Emily held her breath. Milo stood stiff, eyes locked on the bed's corner. Then he leaped forward and bit hard into the mattress, violently, shaking his head like he was trying to kill something. Emily shouted his name, but it was as if he didn't hear her. His eyes were fixed on something she couldn't see, something she felt deep in her spine. Shaken, Emily reached for her phone and hit record. If she couldn't understand what was happening, maybe someone else could. She replayed the video in the morning, expecting to see typical dog behavior. Instead, she saw something that made her chest tighten. Just before Milo growled, the room's temperature display on her bedside alarm clock dipped by 10 degrees. Milo stared at the same empty space for nearly a minute. Then his eyes widened, and he lunged with pure terror in his face. Emily didn't believe in ghosts. But as the early morning light filtered through the curtains, she realized something was wrong. Terribly, unexplainably wrong. Emily couldn't shake the feeling the video had left her with. She'd watched it 5 times already, and each time, her reaction was the same. Goosebumps down her arms, breath held tight in her chest. It wasn't just Milo's reaction. It was the stillness before the outburst. A quiet tension in the air, almost like the room itself was holding its breath. Next day, she took the video to the vet's office, hoping for reassurance. Dr. Langford, a gentle older man with decades of experience, watched it in silence. When it ended, he looked thoughtful. "He's not aggressive," he said. "That's fear. He's reacting to something. Dogs can sense things we can't. Movement, frequencies, even certain gases. But he looks like he's protecting you." Protecting me from what? Emily asked, voice barely above a whisper. The vet didn't answer. He just handed her back the phone with a small frown. Try not to let him sleep in that room for now. Let me know if the behavior stops. Emily tried. She blocked the bedroom off the next night, setting up a dog bed for Milo in the guest room. But when the clock hit 2:47 a.m., he whined, scratched the door and barked wildly until she let him back in. The moment he re-entered the room, his entire posture changed. He crept slowly toward the bed, ears up, tail stiff. Then he let out that same deep growl and lunged, biting the same exact spot. Emily jumped and shouted, "No!" But he didn't stop. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, she was exhausted and trembling. She made coffee with shaky hands, then pushed the mattress off the frame to investigate. It was then that she noticed something she hadn't seen before: scratch marks. Deep ones, not Milo's. These were old, worn into the underside of the wooden bed frame, hidden unless someone flipped the entire bed. They were long, uneven, like someone had clawed at the wood. Her stomach turned. She took a picture and sent it to Jake with a message. "Tell me this is normal." He responded hours later during a break at work. That's weird. Could be from moving the bed, maybe a previous owner, but Emily wasn't convinced. She couldn't stop thinking about the time. 2:47 a.m. every night, like clockwork. It didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. That night she set up 2 cameras, one focused on the bed, the other facing the door. If Milo reacted again, she wanted to see every angle. She curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, wide awake, and watching the monitor connected to her phone. 30 a.m. Nothing. Milo was asleep by the bed. 43 a.m. He stirred. 46. His ears perked. He stood. 47. Milo snapped into action, barking, snarling, leaping forward at the bed. But it wasn't just him. From the footage near the doorway, Emily saw something else, something unmistakable. For just 1 second, as Milo barked and lunged, a dark blur moved across the camera near the floor. It wasn't dust. It wasn't a shadow from a tree. It was shaped, as if something had darted quickly across the room close to the ground. She rewound and paused it frame by frame. It was there, and then Milo was thrown backward. His body lifted slightly before he tumbled onto the floor, yelping. In confusion, Emily dropped the phone, her pulse hammered in her throat. She ran into the room and found Milo curled up, shaking beside the bed, ears flat, tail between his legs. He looked up at her, pleading, like he wanted to speak but couldn't. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a dog acting strange. Something was here, something that didn't want to be seen, but Milo had seen it, and he was trying, desperately, to warn her. Emily barely slept that night. The footage played over and over in her mind, the flash of something inhuman on the camera, Milo's helpless yelp, the deep claw marks under the bed. She tried convincing herself it was all stress, that she was reading too much into it, but she knew better. And then the dreams started. They weren't just bad dreams, they felt real. In them, Emily would wake up frozen, unable to move, her eyes darting around the room while an unseen force pressed heavily on her chest. A faint whisper echoed in the distance, muffled, frantic, like someone trapped behind a wall. And always, Milo was there in the dream at the foot of her bed, growling into the shadows. The following morning she called Jake again, desperation in her voice. "I think something's wrong in the house. Milo knows it. I know it. It's not just dreams. I can't breathe when I sleep. It feels like I'm being held down." Jake, still at the hospital, tried to calm her. Listen, you're tired. You've had back-to-back nights of barely sleeping. Maybe you should come stay at my place a few nights." "I'm not leaving Milo alone here," she replied firmly. "You could bring him too," but Emily hesitated. Deep down she feared whatever was in the house wasn't tied to her. It was tied to Milo. If that thing followed him, she wouldn't risk bringing it somewhere else, especially not to Jake's apartment complex. Later that afternoon, Emily's mother stopped by to drop off groceries. One look at her daughter's pale face and unkempt hair made her stop cold. "Sweetheart, you look sick." Emily tried brushing it off, but when she described Milo's behavior and the disturbing dreams, her mother went quiet. Then, almost hesitantly, she said, Why don't you talk to Mrs. Ramirez next door? She's lived here forever. Maybe she knows something about the house. Desperate for answers, Emily knocked on her elderly neighbor's door that evening. Mrs. Ramirez welcomed her in with warm tea and a knowing look. You're in that corner house, aren't you? 42 Pine, Emily nodded. Why? Mrs. Ramirez sat down slowly. A young woman used to rent that place, 10, maybe 12 years ago. Quiet girl, lived alone. One night she just vanished. No note, no signs of a break-in. Her name was Lisa Hartley. Police searched for weeks, nothing. I always thought something terrible happened in that room. Emily's throat tightened. Did she have a dog? Mrs. Ramirez's eyes widened. Yes, a small mutt, I think. Poor thing barked and barked at night after she went missing. Day after day, the police tried to take it, but it kept biting them. After a while, it disappeared too. Chills ran down Emily's spine. That night, as she lay in bed, Milo was more restless than ever. He paced in circles, growled at shadows, and finally sat rigidly by the bed, ears tilted toward the closet. Emily watched the clock. 4:47 a.m. Milo sprang to his feet and launched himself toward the bed frame, barking furiously. Emily gasped and flipped on the light. Then came the thud. It wasn't from Milo, it was from beneath the bed, a deep, heavy knock, as if something solid had struck the wooden floorboards. Milo whimpered and backed away, trembling, heart hammering. Emily leaned down and lifted the bedskirt. Nothing. Nothing she could see. But as she crawled back into bed, her skin crawled. She could feel it, something unseen, something heavy lingering in the room. And for the first time she whispered aloud, Lisa, is that you? The air turned icy cold. Milo barked once, short, sharp, urgent. Emily didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, Emily walked through the house in a daze. The thud beneath the bed replayed in her head like a drumbeat. She didn't trust her own senses anymore. But Milo hadn't changed. Every night, his behavior grew more urgent, more targeted. He wasn't just reacting. He was trying to lead her to something. She decided to investigate every inch of the room. Emily pulled the bed completely away from the wall. She ran her fingers along the floorboards, checking for loose planks or gaps. At first, nothing stood out. But then she noticed a hairline crack where the floor sounded hollow beneath her knuckles. She grabbed a screwdriver from the kitchen and returned, kneeling with shaky hands. With effort, she pried the edge of the board upward, and it popped, open with a groan. Her heart skipped. Beneath the plank was a small square trapdoor about 2 feet wide, no handle, just old wood and rusted hinges, nearly invisible unless someone was actively searching for it. She stared at it, frozen. Milo whimpered beside her, staring down at it with cautious eyes. Emily hesitated, then ran to grab a flashlight. She returned, pried the trapdoor open slowly, and shined the light down into the darkness. It wasn't a basement, it was a crawl space. Tight, dusty, and lined with old insulation. The space stretched under most of the bedroom, maybe further. A strange, musty smell wafted up. It was sharp, like old metal and rotting fabric, Milo growled. Emily lowered the flashlight further. That's when she saw it, tucked in the far corner, almost buried beneath debris, a small duffel bag covered in dust and spider webs. She swallowed hard. Against every instinct she reached in, stretching her arm until her fingers brushed the fabric. She yanked it out and backed away from the hole. The bag was heavy. Inside was a collection of odd items, an old wallet, women's jewelry, a cracked phone, and a dog collar. Faded, chewed at the ends, but the name tag was still attached. Luna Emily's. Blood ran cold. That was the dog Mrs. Ramirez mentioned, the one that barked for days after Lisa disappeared. Suddenly Milo barked loudly and jumped back. The air shifted. The door to the bedroom slammed shut on its own. Emily screamed, dropping the bag. The flashlight rolled across the floor, casting long shadows on the wall. Something was here, with them. Breathing hard, she grabbed Milo and ran from the room, slamming the door behind her. She stood in the hallway, heart racing, staring at the doorknob. Then she remembered the phone. She ran back, grabbed the phone from inside the bag, and retreated to the kitchen. The screen was shattered, but miraculously, when she plugged it in, the charging light blinked red. It was still functional. Over the next few hours, the phone slowly powered up. When it finally turned on, only one file was left. A video dated 11 years ago. Emily tapped it. The screen flickered, then showed a girl, young, with shoulder-length hair and tired eyes, recording herself in what looked like Emily's bedroom. But the wallpaper was different, older. "If you find this," the girl whispered, glancing nervously behind her. "It's not in the walls, it's under the bed. It comes at night, every night, and Luna sees it. I can't leave, it won't let me." A loud bang interrupted the recording. The girl screamed. The screen shook as the phone was dropped. In the chaos, one last word could be heard before the video cut to black. "Run!" Emily stared at the screen, paralyzed. The phone slipped from her hand. It wasn't just a haunting, it was a trap. Whatever was in that house, it had taken Lisa, and now it was watching her. Emily couldn't stop shaking. Lisa's video confirmed what she'd feared. This thing wasn't just a presence, it was predatory. It had taken Lisa, terrified and alone, and left her dog barking for a help that never came. Now, Milo was doing the same, but she wasn't going to ignore the signs. That evening, she placed the trapdoor cover back in its place and sealed it shut with furniture pushed over it. She sprinkled salt around the bed, something she'd read about in a forum while researching paranormal cases, and lit a white candle in the window. It made her feel foolish, but fear left no room for pride. Jake called just as the sun was going down. "I've been thinking about what you told me. Can I come over after my shift? I want to see it for myself." "No," she said too quickly. "Not yet. I need more time to figure this out." "Emily," he said gently, "you're scaring me." "I'm scared too." She hung up before she changed her mind. Jake couldn't help her with this. Not yet. He didn't believe in what she was facing. At 2:30 a.m., Milo began pacing. Emily sat up in bed, holding a camera in one hand and a flashlight in the other. She'd decided that if it happened again, she'd catch everything. She had to. She needed proof. 2:47 a.m., Milo stopped moving. He stood stiff, staring at the bed. Emily's breath caught. The air dropped in temperature, like an invisible door had opened somewhere. The silence was deafening, and then a whisper. Emily's eyes widened. It wasn't a voice she recognized. It was raspy and low, almost like breathing through static. "You're not supposed to be here," Milo growled, teeth bared. He jumped between Emily and the bed, barking furiously. Emily turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the corner of the room. For half a second, less, it lit up something crouched there. It looked like a person, but wrong, distorted. Its limbs, too long, skin pale and stretched like thin wax. Its eyes were empty hollows, and when the light hit it, it didn't flinch. It simply vanished, as if folding backward into the wall. Emily screamed. Milo barked louder, lunging at the space, biting the air where the thing had been. The candle in the window blew out without a breeze. She grabbed her phone and called the only person she could think of. "Mom, I need help," she whispered, voice cracking. "I need you to come get me, right now." By morning, her mother arrived. Emily had packed a bag, Milo's leash in hand, ready to go. She didn't care where they went, anywhere but that house. But as they stepped outside, Milo refused to move. He stood at the edge of the driveway, eyes fixed on the house, whining. Emily knelt beside him. "Come on, boy, please." But Milo wouldn't go. That night, they stayed at her mother's place. Milo didn't sleep. He stood guard at the foot of the guest bed, watching the door, ears perked. At 2:47 a.m., he growled, even from miles away. Emily knew then. The presence hadn't stayed in the house. It had followed them. She pulled out the old phone she'd taken from the bag and stared at it. She played Lisa's video again, looking for something she missed. This time she noticed it, a glimpse near the end, just before the final scream. Lisa reached into the trapdoor and held up something small and square, a notebook, a journal if. Lisa had left notes, they might still be there. Emily's blood turned cold. She would have to go back, not because she wanted to, but because this thing wasn't going to stop. And Milo. He had chosen her. He wasn't just warning her anymore, he was protecting her. Emily waited 3 more nights before gathering the courage to return. Each one was worse than the last. Milo didn't sleep. He barked at shadows no one else could. See pacing around her mother's home with anxious, protective energy. And every night at 2:47 a.m., the temperature in the room dropped. The clock on her nightstand would flicker. The lights would dim. Something was still coming, still watching. It was never over. So she made a decision. Jake met her at the house the next afternoon, concerned but cooperative. She hadn't told him everything, just enough to convince him that there was something hidden under the floor, something left behind by a missing girl. She didn't mention the creature. Not yet. They entered together. The house was quiet, stale with dust. The furniture she'd used to block the trapdoor had been moved, shifted as if by unseen hands. Emily froze. "I locked this down," she whispered. "I pushed the whole dresser. Over it." Jake didn't respond. He knelt beside the trapdoor and pried it open with a crowbar. "You sure about this?" "No," she admitted, "but I need to know what's under there." He handed her the flashlight. Emily lowered herself into the crawl space, the stale air burning her lungs. Milo followed, reluctantly, staying pressed against her side. She crawled forward, inch by inch, toward the far corner where she'd found the bag, and then she saw it. Behind a loose panel of wood in the far wall was a small cubby, barely large enough for a box. Inside, covered in dust and grime, was an old leather-bound journal. The pages were curled, water-damaged, and stained. Lisa's name was written on the inside cover. Emily flipped it open, careful not to tear the fragile pages. The entries began. Simple. Details about moving into the house, decorating the room, adopting Luna. But then the tone changed. Luna started growling at the bed last night. I thought it was mice. Something touched my foot. I was alone. Luna won't go near the closet anymore. I woke up at 2:47. Every single night it's the same time. I can't sleep. I feel it watching me. Entry after entry told the same story. A descent into fear and paranoia. Lisa's words grew frantic, her handwriting shaky. Then came the final entry. It's inside the floor, it's in the walls, it needs someone to see it, to fear it. I think that's how it stays. I think it took someone before me. I dream of them now, their hands clawing from under the bed, their faces. I can't scream, I can't move. Luna tries to protect me, but she can't. No one can. If anyone finds this, don't let it. No, you see it. Emily's hand trembled. Behind her, Milo whimpered. Jake called from above. Emily? You okay down there? Suddenly, Milo began growling, low and guttural. Emily froze. She turned her flashlight toward the crawlspace wall and saw writing, words scratched into the wood, barely visible through the dirt. She saw it. So it took her. She saw it. The same message over and over, carved deep into the boards. Emily's chest tightened. She spun around and gasped. At the other end of the crawlspace, something shifted. A dark form crouched. At the edge of the light. Not moving, not breathing, just waiting. Milo barked furiously, stepping in front of her. The thing didn't move closer, but it didn't need to. Emily scrambled back, journal clutched to her chest. She hoisted Milo up with one arm and clawed her way back toward the trapdoor. Jake grabbed her hand and pulled her out, just as the trapdoor slammed shut on its own behind her. They stared at it, stunned. Emily panted. Her voice barely worked. It was down there, Jake, it's real. Jake looked pale. What the hell did we just see? Emily held up the journal. Proof. This thing feeds on being seen, being feared. Lisa was the last. Now it's me. And somewhere, deep beneath the floorboards, something stirred. It wasn't finished yet. The next morning, Emily couldn't stop staring at Lisa's journal. She sat on the floor of her mother's living room, every light in the house on, flipping through the fragile pages like they were sacred scripture. Each entry pulled her deeper, into Lisa's fear. The words weren't just a record of what happened, they were a warning. Jake paced nearby, eyes darting toward the front window every few seconds. We need help. Paranormal help. An exorcist. A psychic. Something. I tried, Emily said flatly. I've called every medium and spiritual investigator within 100 miles. No one wants to step foot in that house once they hear the story. Jake ran a hand through his hair. So what do we do? Wait until this thing takes you like it did Lisa? Emily glanced down at Milo, curled protectively at her side. No, I'm going back, but this time we go deeper. If it wants to be seen, wants us to fear it, then we take away its power. We bring it into the light. Jake gave her a long look. You're serious? She nodded. Lisa didn't finish this, I have to. That night they returned to the house. Milo hesitated at the threshold but eventually followed, his fur bristling, his nose twitching. Emily had packed equipment, a thermal camera, UV light, salt, and 3 motion sensors from a hardware store. Jake brought his father's old hunting knife, just in case. The trapdoor still sat in the floor, sealed shut. Dust had settled over it again, as if the thing below wanted to be forgotten. Emily turned to Jake. We open it, set up the sensors. Then we lure it out. Lure it, he echoed. How? She held up Lisa's journal. We show it we're not afraid to see it. They descended into the crawl space together, Milo last. Emily set up the cameras and sensors at the corners of the narrow space. Each movement caused dust to swirl in the flashlight beam, creating the illusion of shapes, shadows, faces. At 2:40 a.m., they sat in silence, waiting. The air became cold, colder than the night before. Emily's breath fogged the air. Jake looked at the monitor. Motion sensor just went off, corner 1. Emily turned her flashlight in that direction. Nothing. Corner 3 now, Jake whispered. Then all 3 sensors lit up at once. Emily's blood ran cold. She felt it before she saw it. The weight in the air, the pressure in her chest. Milo whined and pushed himself against her side. Then a shape emerged. It didn't crawl, it didn't walk, it bloomed out of the shadows, stretching slowly until it stood in full view. A human-shaped void, skin like cracked porcelain, head tilted in a grotesque, inhuman angle. But its face was the worst part. There were no eyes, only mouths, dozens of them, where eyes and cheeks should have been, whispering, all at once. You see me. You fear me. So you are mine. Emily held up the journal. No, she said, voice shaking. We're not afraid anymore. Jake lit the flare. The sudden burst of light filled the crawl space, searing the thing in full view. It screamed, every mouth on its face opening wide in silent agony. It shrank back, shrinking into the walls, the floor, melting into the wood like water into paper. Emily shouted, You live in fear, but we won't feed you anymore. The temperature rose by 20 degrees in seconds. Milo barked, savage and fearless. And then, silence. All sensors died. The air stilled. They crawled out together, gasping. Emily collapsed on the floor of her bedroom. Did it work? Jake stared at the trapdoor. I don't know, but Emily did. It wasn't gone, not yet. She'd weakened it. And as she opened the journal one last time, a loose page fluttered out, one she hadn't noticed before. On it, Lisa had written, It doesn't want to be seen because when you see it, truly see it, it breaks. But no one ever makes it that far. Emily stared at the words. Tomorrow night, she would. The night was thick with silence when Emily stood. Alone in her bedroom, the journal spread open on her lap. Milo sat alert at her feet, ears twitching with every creak and whisper of the old house. Jake had left hours ago, insisting Emily should face this final battle on her own. He didn't want to be the reason she didn't come back. Emily was terrified. But more than that, she was determined. She'd seen the creature's true form. She'd seen the shadows beneath the floorboards, and she knew now what it wanted most, fear. But fear, she realized, was a choice. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the room grew, icy cold, colder than she'd ever felt before. Her breath fogged the air. Milo growled low in his throat, hackles raised. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched and pulsed as if the darkness was breathing. Then from beneath the bed, The trapdoor creaked open with a low, ominous groan. Emily's heart hammered as the blackness spilled upward and outward, shaping itself into the figure she dreaded most. It stood before her, the hollow-faced entity with mouths for eyes, whispering in 1,000 voices at once. "You see me. You fear me. You belong to me." Emily took a shaky breath and clutched the journal to her chest. "No," she said, voice trembling but steadying. "I don't fear you anymore." The creature paused, the cacophony of whispers falling silent. It lurched closer, unnatural limbs twisting like shadows caught in wind. Emily reached into the journal's last pages, where Lisa had written the incantation she'd found scrawled in the house's margins, words meant to banish the unseen. With Milo barking fiercely, Emily spoke the words aloud, her voice rising despite the chill that wrapped around her. "By light and truth I call your name. Reveal your face. Break your claim. No longer shall you feed on fear. In this bright flame, disappear." As she finished, the candle on her windowsill burst into a brilliant flame, sending light flooding the room. The creature recoiled, shrieking, a sound like glass breaking and wind tearing through trees. It twisted and writhed as the light enveloped, it shrinking smaller and smaller until it became a flicker, then a wisp, then nothing. The trapdoor slammed shut, and warmth returned to the room. Milo trotted forward, nuzzling Emily's hand, calm for the first time in weeks. Emily exhaled slowly, tears streaming down her face, not from fear, but relief. She had faced the darkness and won. But in the morning, the house was different. Sunlight poured through the windows, chasing away the heavy shadows that once clung to every corner. The trapdoor was sealed tight, and on the floor, beside her bed, lay Luna's old collar, forgotten, dusty, but no longer a symbol of fear. Emily smiled softly. She picked up the journal, now a testament not to horror, but to hope. Lisa's story had ended in silence and disappearance, but Emily's was just beginning, because some things don't stay buried forever, and some heroes are born from the darkest nights,